Hello everyone, my name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute. Thanks for joining me for Preston's Ponderings. We're in the midst of a study of Matthew 16, 27 and 28, where Jesus said, "For the Son of Man will come in the glory of the Father with his angels, and shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there are some standing here which shall not taste of death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." I've been noting that Jesus' use of the little Greek particle gar, translated as for, at the beginning of verse 27, connects his prediction of judgment with his preceding prediction of his own death and that of his disciples. In other words, Jesus was predicting his coming in judgment of those who were going to kill him and persecute his disciples. I've demonstrated that this is precisely what is found in Matthew 23, 29 and following, in which Jesus said all of the blood of all the righteous would be shed or would be judged and vindicated in his generation in the judgment of Jerusalem. I've shared with you how this prediction is taken from the Old Testament. What I want to do today in this segment is to share with you another one of those great Old Testament prophecies that predicted the avenging of the blood of the martyrs in the Old Testament. You know, this is a theme, folks, that is so ignored in the studies of biblical eschatology. And yet the theme of the avenging of the martyrs runs from Genesis all the way to Revelation. Now, I sell a great book entitled The Avenging of the Apostles and Prophets by an author by the name of Arthur Ogden. You can find it on my website. It's a great book. I recommend very highly that you get it. One of the best written on this theme that I have personally read, even though I disagree with this view on the millennium. Nonetheless, it's a great book on the theme of the avenging of the prophets. Well, let's move on. Again, I want to share with you a prophecy from the Old Testament. Isaiah chapters 2 through 4 are united prophecy. Isaiah said, "It shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the tops of the mountains and exalted above the hills." Here's the framework in the last days. This is messianic. It predicted the establishment of the messianic temple on Mount Zion, which is the focus of messianic prophecy. What would happen in these last days? Well, notice in chapter 4, verses 2 through 4, and read it together with me. "It shall come to pass that he who is left in Zion and remains in Jerusalem will be called holy, everyone who is recorded among the living in Jerusalem." Now watch this. "When the Lord has washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and purged the blood of Jerusalem from her midst by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning." Did you catch that? In the last days, when the kingdom would be established, when the messianic temple would be established, God would purge Jerusalem from her filth and from her blood guilt. How would he do that? By the spirit of burning and the spirit of judgment. This is incredible. Now, when did Jesus come? He came in the last days, foretold by Isaiah chapter 2. What did Jesus predict? He predicted the judgment of Jerusalem for shedding the innocent blood, all of the blood shed on the earth, and he said it would take place in his generation. Now watch this. I tell you, I love this. This is incredible. Do you remember when Jesus was being led out to his death? Luke chapter 23, 28 to 31. The women who loved him were gathered round weeping and mourning his impending death. Jesus turned to them and said this. Luke 23, 28 to 31. "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For indeed the days are coming in which they will say, Blessed are the barren, wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us." If they do these things in the greenwood, what will be done in the dry? Now, here's something critical that you need to understand. Virtually all commentators agree that Jesus was predicting the impending fall of Jerusalem in AD 70 for killing him. In other words, AD 70 would be the vindication of Jesus' suffering And we already know it would be the vindication of the suffering of his saints and the martyrdom of all of the blood of all of the righteous shed on the earth. So, Luke chapter 23, 28 to 31, the prediction of Jesus' coming in judgment of Old Covenant Jerusalem for shedding innocent blood. But watch this. What Jesus was doing was citing and alluding directly to Isaiah chapter 2, 19 to 21. Read this with me, okay? This is incredible. They shall run into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth from the terror of the Lord and the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake the earth mightily. In that day a man will cast away his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made each for himself to worship, to the moles and bats, to go into the clefts of the rock, into the crags of the rugged rocks, from the terror of the Lord, the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake the earth mightily. Wow! Watch this. Jesus in Luke 23, in predicting the impending judgment of Jerusalem for shedding his blood, cites Isaiah chapter 2, 19 to 21. The time at the day of the Lord when men would run to the hills and say to the hills, fall on us, protect us. By the way, that can't hardly be an end of time event. That would be over in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, can it? I mean, you're supposedly not supposed to be able to run from the day of the Lord that's over in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. And yet in this day of the Lord, men would be able to flee, and they would cry to the mountains, fall on us, protect us from the terror of the Lord. He is coming, he is coming. Okay, now, this is critical, okay? Isaiah said that in the last days, at the day of the Lord, God would purge Jerusalem from her blood guilt by the spirit of judgment. Do you think Isaiah chapter 2, 19 and following is spirit of judgment? Fire? Of course it is. So in the last days, at the day of the Lord, God would purge Israel and Jerusalem from her blood guilt. Jesus, in predicting the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, cites Isaiah chapter 2, 19 and following, and in Luke chapter 23, he unequivocally says that Jerusalem's blood guilt was going to be brought on her at the fall of Jerusalem in his generation. Now, since Matthew 16:27 is the prediction of Jesus' coming in judgment of those who were going to kill him and his disciples, that agrees perfectly with verse 28. There are some standing here which shall not taste of death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Folks, Matthew 16:27 and 28 was fulfilled at the coming of the Lord in the last days and the day of the Lord, when Jesus came in judgment of Jerusalem for shedding his blood and all of the blood shed on the earth. We've got more. Thanks for joining me for Preston's Ponderings. We'll see you on the flip side.